it seemed like they were finally healthy, and then just the rug got pulled out from under them. Ben Simmons likely out for the season, and then the next game, Embiid hurts his ankle in the stanchion. I mean, Jason, what do you make of this and just what's going on in Philadelphia right now? Or I should say to Philadelphia in Orlando.
Well, it's unfortunate circumstances that's going on with Ben Simmons because he looked like he was coming around, he was starting to hit his stride. Same thing with Embiid, but I look at this as a blessing in disguise. I look at this as you saved the embarrassment from getting beat with those guys against Boston. Now you have a built-in excuse. Oh, we didn't have Ben Simmons. We can try to retool the roster. Now we won't have to fire our coach because I thought he was on the hot seat from the beginning of the season. So I feel like this is like a built-in excuse for them to try to retool and run it back next year without trying to trade one. So I'm sticking to the blessing in disguise. It's unfortunate what's going on in Philadelphia. I say trust the process one more season. Try to run it back because I think when these two guys are healthy, they're the best duo in the Eastern Conference. So bring it back one more year.
Oh, that's before KD and Kyrie suit up, though, my friend. But so we have a couple of lightning rounds. But before we get to that, do you have any other teams that you want to touch on that you're pleasantly surprised by, or disappointing, or just anything that's really stood out to you from being down there on the campus?
I would definitely say it's definitely the 4-5 matchup in the East, the Miami and Indiana. I'm impressed by both teams. T.J. Warren is definitely emerged as top 5 bubble players to watch going forward. And I'm just surprised how well Miami's played. It's unfortunate that both teams didn't have enough ground to make up on Boston, so they're destined to play each other. So overall, from most of the Eastern Conference has been competitive. The only 2 bad blemishes, all 3, would have been the 76ers, Orlando, and Washington. But everybody else in the East has been playing really good basketball. Milwaukee, they've been coasting, and many say the Lakers are doing the same, but Milwaukee is definitely coasting because I definitely believe they're going to turn up the intensity on defense come playoff time.
I'm actually surprised at the amount of load management considering how long players have been off, 4-month layoff, but I don't disagree with it because I think it's tactical. You got guys like if our playoff seating's locked in, why risk injury? It's not like, oh, we're resting because it's playing too many minutes. Like these guys all sat home on their couches for a very long time. Not that they didn't work out, but it's just interesting to me how the NBA works. But last week, Ben and I discussed, how the NBA reacted to the social justice movement and, how majority did kneel for the national anthem, players, coaches, whatnot. And Jonathan Isaac, stood, didn't wear a Black Lives Matter T-shirt, just kind of stood there in his jersey. And then you had Myers Leonard, who has family in the military. He stood as well. So, the last 2 weeks being down there for the actual games, what have you seen as far as social justice? Are guys still talking about it? Because I know in the media it's a lot of X's and O's and games and things like that. But, what have you seen down there? Because it's still a very important message that we don't want to fall through the cracks here.
It's still being talked about. Actually, the players are mostly talking about what can they do come postseason time to make sure that it doesn't go tone deaf, and that's what they're working on now. Maybe new T-shirts to wear post interview or before the game, things like that. They definitely want the messages to not be tone deaf, but at the same time, they are still talking about it. A lot of people in the media are still here talking about it as well. But now now most of the people are talking about the election, whereas that's starting to take center stage now that Biden has picked his VP running mate. So that's where the narrative is now being talked about. Okay, so we got to talk about the election because it's one thing to talk about the Black Lives Matter movement and social justice and civil unrest and things like that. But now, before we could even execute on those topics, we all have to keep a close eye on the presidential race, considering that, the current president is still taking shots at not only the NBA, but the NHL and the NFL and things like that. So that's what's kind of that's the noise coming in right now. That's where everybody's really talking about.
Yeah, obviously, I think anyone who follows the NBA knows that there were some critical comments that did come out. And I don't know how deeply we need to go into them. I mean, some of them come from a pretty misguided place. The statistics speak for themselves. The NBA has been doing very well on ratings in spite of what the current president seems to be implying. 8 of the top 10 primetime TV spots have been NBA games, so I don't think Adam Silver is losing any sleep on that. And you mentioned Kamala Harris, and this is a good time to mention too that that's another historic moment. So hopefully that can continue some sea change that's coming, and we can get justice for Breonna Taylor as well. This is my obligatory moment where I have to remind the listeners that we need to continue to fight for that cause, as well as the murders of Breonna Taylor are still out there. So that's important to keep saying. But with that said, Jason, um, I don't want to get too far off of basketball. I don't believe that we need to, stick to sports or shut up and dribble. But at the
Right.
same time, I also want to make sure that we get the time to get all of your wealth of NBA knowledge here, because we kind of talked to you last time and we put you on the spot a little bit and said, who are the bubble life all-stars? And you were like, man, I don't see as much of it as you guys probably do because I'm actually here. So I don't, we're socially isolated. Now, Jason, now we can actually make bubble all stars for the games. So we thought we'd give you another chance to say a few of those guys. I know you mentioned TJ Warren. I mean, who else has really impressed you down there?
See, between TJ Warren, Damian Lillard, Devin Booker, I want to say, who else I want to say? I want to say Jason Tatum. I'm still high on the Celtics. James Harden. And who would be my last player I'll put in that slot? I'm going to go with...
Feel free to say Karis LeVert if you want.
Hey, is Dame Lillard in there yet? Did you mention Dame Lillard?
Yeah, I mentioned Dame. Carol LeVert he's definitely coming off the bench. But as a starter, I'm probably gonna go. Oh man, I guess I'm gonna go. Paul George. He's been playing well. I've been liking what I'm seeing from Paul George.
It's definitely perimeter dominated.
Yeah. I was just gonna say it's interesting that the NBA is launching the naming a player of the seeding games, kind of like a pseudo MVP. I know it's a very small sample size, and then an all seeding games team, which Jason just named his. It's just another interesting dynamic to why this bubble's been so successful. I mean, did you guys see what the Suns did? They had the teams, they surprised the players with their family and friends announcing the starting lineups, and the little girl that announced Devin Booker. It was just the most precious thing. And the NBA is really pulling out all the stops as far as making the experience for, everyone down on campus and everyone watching at home and covering like we are. It's just been so enjoyable, and it's been a real bright spot in what has been a dark year, 2020. And it's just nice to see basketball back in full swing. So, Jason, we mentioned this to you before the show, but Ben and I like to do our Mamba matchups, as we just started naming them, of the week. So Ben and I are going to just go back and forth, do our ones for Wednesday and Thursday, and then we'll let you come in with your marquee matchup for Friday, and then we'll kind of sail out. So, Ben, why don't you get us started?
Absolutely. And I have to start by saying the Suns intro was amazing. It got very dusty in the McDonald household when I saw that video. Very, very dusty. Someone was cutting onions or something in the house. I don't know. But I'm going to start off with the non-Thursday edition of the Mamba matchups that we have, because spoiler alert, most of the games that we're going to be watching are on Thursday. But tomorrow, or when you guys listen to this, probably today, the Clippers play the Nuggets. That'll be a good game. Hopefully we get a lot of minutes from the starters, but obviously, these are two of the top teams. Could be the second round matchup. And then, Jason, let me turn it over to you to talk about this giant chunk of games that are basically the race for the 8th seed.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say we'll just do this in one shot. You got Blazers and Nets, which I expect the Blazers to just obliterate them. The Nets will probably rest a couple guys. And look, the Nets already have their 2 surprise wins. They have no incentive to try and stop Dame and company. So you have 4 teams, 2 spots. You got the Blazers and the Nets. the Mavs playing the Suns, the Spurs playing the Jazz, and the Grizzlies really catching the short end of the stick. They get the Bucks on Thursday. Milwaukee could end up resting some guys, but I did read something this week that just said the Grizzlies have probably the only team that has faced all of their opponents at full strength. So with that, add on the Jaren Jackson Jr. injury, and it's a tough break for Memphis, who I think are a year or two early. But Jason, will bring you in. What is your honorary Kobe Bryant Mamba matchup of the week before the playoffs begin?
I got two. I got Friday. I got the Miami Indiana game. Even though they're going to play each other, it seemed like it's still a lot of bad blood going back from January between T.J. Warren and Jimmy Butler. And considering that Jimmy Butler held T.J. to only 12 points in the last matchup this week, that's going a long way. And this is a statement game. We want to send a message like, hey, we're going to see you guys next week, but just so you know, we're here. So I think that's going to be a good matchup as well. Also, Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Clippers. Oklahoma City is still in play for the 4th seed. So if they can move on up a little bit, that's good for them. Clippers, you don't know what you're going to get. I think they're probably going to rest everybody. So that's my two most important matchups for Friday night.
And I think we can all agree the Western Conference playing games on Saturday and potentially Sunday, if the 9 seed does win, that is going to be a very exciting weekend. And then the playoffs start Monday. So definitely a lot to look forward to. So, Jason, you've been really gracious with your time. Ben and I really appreciate it. So first, we're going to ask you your playoff predictions. We'll have you back on throughout the playoffs to break it down. But before it starts, who do you got raising the Larry O'Brien trophy? And then we'll end with anything you'd like to plug, because we know you got a very exciting article coming out shortly.
Let's see. I'm still holding on hope to the Boston Celtics. However, the top of the East is looking very tough. I think Toronto is out here showing that, hey, we're still the champs. We're going to come out here and try to defend our championship. Out West, it all hinges on that Lakers Blazers potential matchup. If the Lakers don't play the Blazers, they probably have a nice trajectory to the conference finals, where they'll probably play the Clippers. But if Portland don't get them, the Clippers will. So I'm definitely looking at that Boston Clippers matchup, not the traditional LA versus Boston matchup, but it'll be the Clippers at this time. And I think I'm still holding on to Boston to win the championship. I'm still riding with that dark horse because I think Kemba, Tatum, Brown, everybody's going to find their rhythm come the playoffs once the playoffs start.
Fair enough, man. And before we let you go, tell us about this Views from the Bubble article. Can you give us a little sneak peek before we're able to read it?
Oh yeah, definitely. The first installment of Views from the Bubble, we're gonna, address, some of the bubble lifestyle in terms of like what a player is thinking, what a player is talking about, what are people eating, have a new super team been talked about, because there's a little hints of certain players being, collaborating a little bit. Also, I'm probably also going to talk about how a certain team in Houston kind of gave the Nets some pointers on how to play the Milwaukee Bucks when the Nets surprisingly beat them that night. So there's a lot of camaraderie going on amongst players. People are definitely sharing tips, and we're going to talk all about that in Views from the Bubble.
I love it. That sounds awesome. I can't wait to read it, and we can't wait to talk with you again, Jason. Jason said it, but we really appreciate your time coming on. It's great to get your insights, and we really appreciate you just sharing all the knowledge you have from, years of covering the league, being around all these guys, and just thank you so much for all the time today, and good luck for everyone out there. Check out Jason's new article, Views from the Bubble, when that drops. Just follow Jason everywhere you can. You got a Twitter plug? Any Twitter, Instagram plugs going on?
Yeah,
you live streaming anything?
Definitely follow me on Twitter and Instagram, both at BusyJ791, and definitely be on the lookout for when I sneak a little content, especially come playoff time. I'm definitely going to live stream some games. Would you hear some curse words that you don't hear on national televised media?
So what you're saying is mute the TV and stream with Jason C. I like it. I like it a lot.
There you go.
Yeah, Jason, this was a pleasure. Anything you got before we let you go? Anything else you want to touch on?
That's it right now. If anything else drops, I'll definitely let you guys know. So you definitely plug it on.
All right. Well,
All right. Well, we'll definitely have